Okay, we're ready to go. All right. Thanks, Steve. All right, we'll get the meeting going here. We have a quorum, visual quorum too. But prior to starting, pursuant to the Illinois Attorney General's guidance to public bodies on the Open Meetings Act, during the COVID-19 pandemic dated July 2, 2020, board members may participate without being physically present in compliance with the established provisions. So item one, the call to order. We'll do that. It's 9 a.m. And do we?
I have to do a roll call.
Okay.
Just because it's so much fun. Armin.
Here.
Here.
Aiden.
Here.
Aaron.
Here.
Bird.
Here.
Joel.
He's there.
He's there. Okay. I'll president accountable, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Item 3, chairman's remarks. I don't have any. Item 4, public comment. Public comment, okay. Item 5A, approval of the minutes from the PAC meeting on Monday, June 7th. If I can get a motion to approve, please.
So moved, Aaron. I'll second then.
Who's the first one?
Aaron Barman.
Aaron Barman or Barman here?
Okay.
Ready?
Roll call.
Yeah, here we go. Aaron.
Sorry, yes.
Bird.
Yes.
Oh. Give me a thumbs up there.
You guys not hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, Barman.
Yes.
Nina.
Yes.
Aiden.
Yes.
Okay.
Great. We are moving on to 6A, the current standards affecting the fire service and radios used for firefighting. John Mozar, I understand you're going to handle that this morning.
Yes, good morning. I have a presentation. I have to select my screen. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, let me get on the right page here. Okay. This particular presentation is going to cover 2 items. The first item is going to cover will be the batteries and then the radios under the new standards. Okay, a little bit of background. The APX 7000 XE was, by my records, was first placed in service back in May of 2012. The radios were all sold with an intrinsically safe certification using the FM 1036 rating under a company called Factory Mutual. And Motorola built the radios with this certification, which is a little different than normal certification processes where the actual certification company does the certification. This means it does not require any kind of annual inspections because of that, but the radio must continue to carry any kind of certification hazardous markings, which we'll show in a second. The radio and the battery are both certified individually, and the radio must must have the correct battery to retain the certification for intrinsically safe. So if we look at the battery, look at the radio, you'll notice that it has the correct markings along the side of it. This is just below the accessory connector. And it does show that it is intrinsically safe in certain classes and groups, and it is non-incendive in other classes. Okay, back in mid-April, ETSB was advised that radios that were at the depot had several options. First, the radio could be returned unrepaired, or with written permission from the ETSB, the radio would be repaired, but the intrinsically safe certification and sticker would be removed. Motorola, just as a point of notice here, Motorola stopped the certification process at the end of last year. And then also on May 6, 21, ETSB was notified the battery NNTN 8092A, which makes the radio intrinsically safe, would no longer be sold. So as a result, ETSB purchased a limited remaining stock of the batteries. And as a radio maintainer, we performed a search for any possible replacements that may meet this FM certification. As we found out, the FM 1036 certification for the battery was no longer available. So research continued to see what other batteries or parameters we could find for an FM certified battery. We found an aftermarket battery and we asked for 2 samples, which were provided. And then some of the characteristics of this battery are we found that it does have a UL 913 5th edition certification. It does have the classes, divisions, and group ratings stamped on the battery. And it also has a symbol, an SGS symbol, which is a standards company. It also has a temperature rating. They call it a TAM rating. And the symbol is TA of 60 degrees Celsius. And just for comparison, the NNTN 8092A battery has a T3, which is a higher rating. It's a 160-degree rating. Now, looking at the batteries, the battery on the left, obviously, is the Motorola. And the first thing you'll notice is the triangle with the exclamation point. That is required for anything that's intrinsically safe, because it is telling you that there's certain criterion that have to be met. And if that criterion cannot be stamped on the battery because the area is too small to print that area in, then an attention symbol and notification where to find that needs to be printed, and it does have that. The other characteristic of this, the Motorola battery, if you notice in the lower right-hand corner, there's a PCT symbol. And that PCT symbol is a UL 2054 certification, and it was certified as intrinsically safe in Russia, which I found interesting. Looking at the aftermarket battery that we found, it has all the correct voltage ratings, current ratings. It does not, although, have the symbol, the triangle and the exclamation point symbol, but it does have all of the UL ratings below in the bottom half of the radio. It's kind of hard to see in this slide, but all the ratings are present for it. So the next thing I wanted to do is I wanted to see if this battery really was compatible with our Impress charger. So first thing I did was took the battery, put it in the Impress charger, and it performed a calibrated discharge. The other thing I wanted to see if it reported correctly the percentage and the current of the battery when the charge was complete, which it did do. The next test I performed was to take a fully charged battery, put it in a radio, and see if it reported correctly on the radio's battery indicator. And I also took a battery that was fairly well discharged, and it did appear to correctly display that condition of that battery as well. So to summarize the testing of the battery, it appears to be the same size, and it fits the NNTN 8092A. It meets all the class, division, group ratings. It's compatible with the Impress bank and single charger. It reports all of the calibrated discharge, charge percentages correctly on the charger. Also reports correctly on the radio. One item to note is that these batteries come completely discharged, and they do note that. And you have to charge them completely before you put them in service. And the batteries that we had were at 0. They were completely discharged. We also dispersed these 2 batteries out in the field because I wanted to have a little bit more field testing done on these batteries, because I just didn't have enough time to put it in a real world environment. Moving on to the electronic safety equipment, which is the radios. A little bit of background. The first standard, which was NFPA 70, which is the National Electrical Code, identifies hazardous and combustible flammable atmospheres, and the important key is at fixed locations. The first document was developed in 1897. It's been updated since that time. And then subsequent articles in the document also talk about classes and groups. They define further into categories of environment by divisions. And then articles 500 through 506 also talk about the standards that are used for designing and testing these radios. Article 500 also specifies different temperature codes for classes 1 and 2, which are the most important for us in this area for fire service. And those temperature ratings are generally from 85 degrees C to 450 degrees C. NFPA 493 was the first standard for radio design and implementation. It was designed first back in 1969. And since then, NFPA 493 has been replaced by the current standard, which is UL 913 for use in Class 1, Class 2, and Division 1 hazardous locations. The ANSI UL 913 standard has several requirements, and one of the bigger requirements is that any of the RF power out, the energy that is dispersed by this radio, should not ignite any type of test gases in the environment because of arcing. So in other words, the components that are designed in these radios will not allow the radio to overheat to a point where it starts arcing or causing any kind of sparks in a normal environment, and then of course in a abnormal conditions where you have different gases present. Another standard that has come out as well is the ISA 1212.01. It's a newer standard and it encompasses all of NFPA 70 and the 493, which it replaced as well. And this particular standard really defines what a non-incentive radio is for all the divisions 1 and division 2. And it's just to note that the intrinsically safe definition for UL 913 is the most stringent, which is not part of this ISA 1212.01. So looking at the definitions down below here, non-incentive equipment, which 1212.01 defines, it basically states that any electrical equipment should not cause, under normal operating conditions, an ignition of any gases or fluids or dusts or any other fibers that are out in the air due to any kind of arcing or any kind of overheating by the radio. Whereas UL 913, any spark or the effect that may occur in the normal use under conditions of fault are likely to occur in practice is incapable of causing an ignition of the prescribed flammable gas or vapor or dust. So basically what it's saying is that 913, you may not have any of those conditions when you have any of these gases present. One of the things that ISA 1212.01 does not cover is the ignition under normal conditions. And unlike the UL 913, it does not consider the effect of faults. And that is the higher standard of 913. This particular slide covers primarily what I'm trying to get out of this slide is it covers what intrinsically safe standard means. And if you look at item E under the protection technique, if you notice that all the classes and all the divisions are covered under intrinsically safe, and that would cover the Apex 7000 XE, whereas the Apex 8000 XE and the Apex Next cover items under F, G, and H, which is non-incentive circuit, equipment, and component designs. This particular slide is just a summary of all the information I could find on the 3 different batteries for the 7000 XE, 8000 XE, and the aftermarket battery. And as you can see, the 7000 XE covers all of the standards for class 1, 2, and 3, whereas the 8000 does not because it's a non-incentive rated battery instead of intrinsically safe. You'll also notice that the aftermarket battery does cover all of the non-incentive and intrinsically safe standards. So it appears to meet the intrinsically safe standard. So to summarize, the Apex 7000 XE, the intrinsically safe standard covers all the classes as we talked about in all the groups with the exception of A and B. And I think one of those two is acetylene and some other gases that are not normally found. The non-incentive class 1 division 2 covers all the groups A through D with a temperature rating. And then the 7000, we indicated we had to have that particular battery to retain the certification. From the documentation that I found, certification documentation I found online, the GTS battery appears to meet the intrinsically safe standard. It appears to report all and charge and report correctly all of the indications. And again, we've dispersed the batteries out to field to just see how they're going to hold up in the field. So looking at the Apex 8000 XE, a little different in their markings, but still a requirement of the non-incentive device as well. It's a UL requirement. Now, if you notice, it does have all listing for all the groups. I know it's kind of hard to see, but it does have the listing for all the groups and classes on here. And it does have the UL listing for this radio. And notice it does not have a UL 913 listing on it because it is not intrinsically safe. The battery as well has a listing. It does have the caution. And if you notice on the to the left there, it does have the triangle with the exclamation point, and it does say to read the manual, which is the proper marking for this battery. And also below it, if you'll notice, there's a backwards R and a U, and it says US. That is the correct symbology for the UL 205 rating for this particular battery for non-incendive. All right, to summarize, for the 8000 XE and the next, the incentive class is the 1212.01 that we talked about. It covers all the proper groups and divisions. It does not meet the intrinsically safe standard because it's missing some of the groups in class 1. It has the correct UL markings on the radio. It conforms to the UL 2054 markings, and it appears to meet the non-incentive standard. One of the other things I found in one of the reports is a Dr. Rita Fahey had reported in her study that for approximately 40 explosions that occurred between 1997 and 2009 that caused the line of death duties, no explosions were directly attributed to equipment carried by firefighters. That included radios and PAS, which is the Personal Alert Safety Systems, and SCBAs. Standard summary. NFPA 70 identifies the hazardous combustible or flammable atmospheres at, again, the key word is fixed locations. Several new standards throughout the years have emerged as the new technologies have come along in radios, because radios have become more computerized and there's more circuitry. There's circuitry in the batteries and so forth. And one of the things of 1802, NFPA 1802, it attempts to consolidate all the previous standards, and its focus primarily is on the external accessories of the radio. And it also states that intrinsically safe is not a requirement of NFPA 1802, but the non-incentive, which the Apex 8000 XE is a minimum requirement for hazardous locations. And again, since FM certification for our 7000 XEs was performed at the manufacturing point, and some of the radios have been out there 8 to 10 years, and they've never gone to the depot for any kind of repairs, I'm not sure we can guarantee the radios meet any kind of FM certification standards at this time, even with the aftermarket battery. And then these are some of the sources that I had used for compiling these slides today. So are there any questions? I don't hear any questions.
No, neither do I, John. Good report, obviously. Can you dumb that down a little bit for me?
I tried quite a bit. This presentation was a little different than was at the fire service.
Okay, so what's your bottom line?
The bottom line is that I think we found a battery that is intrinsically safe, but again, because the battery is certified separately from the radio, we cannot guarantee that the radio will be intrinsically safe certified. So I think the question becomes to the fire service: do we want to proceed using, looking to use these batteries, or do they want to look at some other options? I mean, at this point, I think we're at that point.
Andy, Jim, Pat, what do you?
Yeah, if I may. So I think we found, or not we, but John and Jim have found a good solution to fill in the gaps, a good safe solution to fill in the gaps. Until that NFPA 1802 radio is available, we have and I say good and safe because it's an intrinsically safe battery, it's an intrinsically safe radio. Together, Motorola will not certify them because it's not a Motorola battery. However, they're both intrinsically safe components that reason together. So we're not trying to put any stopgap measure that's going to be unsafe for our firefighters. Now, like John Lozar said, we are doing some testing in the field. Warrenville has one of the batteries. We've been using it nonstop and have not had any issues as of yet. We're going to continue our trial, but I don't foresee any problems. I think we should have a little more discussion at the DUCOM chief level. We did have some the other day. Seems like for the most part, everybody's in favor of waiting for that 1802 standard radio to become available, because the new standard is going to be a much safer radio than we would get today. So I think this is the right thing to do, is to fill that gap until we get to that safer radio.
So this battery gives us time.
I would say yes.
Bottom line.
Mhm.
Okay.
I would talk to the others, see what they think. I don't disagree. I'm just, you know,
No, I'd like to hear from
not
others.
up to me.
Jim, Pat, any comment?
Bill, I can talk for 4 of the 7 ACDC fire departments I've had a conversation with. We still haven't had our hands on the new radios or the 8000 to check it out, but I got the presentation at DUCOM the other day with chief from 2 of the other departments. I agree with Chief Dinah. I think that's our only option here that makes sense, is to use these radios temporarily, or these batteries temporarily, to fill a gap until we get an AT02 radio that meets that standard that we can purchase. There's no reason to rush this and buy an 8000 XE radios for the fire side, which are a lower standard than what we currently have right now. And these batteries will get us through to we can get the radio that we want, that'll serve our needs, I think. That's a feeling from 4 of the 7 FDs. I don't know, Chief Connolly, if you could speak for Westmont, then that would be 5 of the 7. But we're still waiting to have our meeting at ACDC. So
I'm always cautious speaking for the chief, but I will give my personal opinion here. So John and I had a good opportunity to work together on this, and John did a lot of heavy lifting to get you where you are today. Let me give you my view as a personal view and then as a professional engineer. My personal view as a firefighter is I'm not uncomfortable using the current radio, and I'm not uncomfortable using the current radio with the proposed alternate battery, assuming that the field testing pans out, we don't find some crazy issue with charging or something else. I say that for a couple of reasons. One, we work hard to keep our firefighters out of what would be called Class 1, Division 1 atmospheres. So we try not to put them in atmospheres that are highly flammable or combustible. But it could happen, and that's why, the ultimate safety is an intrinsically safe radio. But it's also why NFPA 1802 apparently allows for non-incentive, which is a slightly lower classification than intrinsically safe. So having said that, I'm not uncomfortable. I think the proposed solution is a good stopgap solution. I wouldn't view it as a 5-year solution. I think it's a short-term solution. We should work diligently to find a replacement. Hopefully it's a 1802 compliant replacement, but we'll see what develops. I will have to say, as a professional engineer, I've got to tell you that just as Motorola's engineers, I'm sure, tell Motorola that there is no way to guarantee the performance of a radio and battery combination that have not been tested as a unit. They've been tested separately, gives you some degree of confidence, but there's no way to predict. And I've done enough testing of all kinds, electrical and fire testing, to know that you get surprised sometimes. So not speaking ill of it, I'm just saying, if you ask my professional opinion, I would have to say it's a non-certified radio with the use of that battery. But I agree with Chief Dinah. It is, a reasonable solution. We should proceed with it, barring some other unforeseen circumstance, but we shouldn't get too complacent about it. And my final thought is, given all the research we've now done, and I would say I personally learned something about the radio I've been carrying for 10 years and the batteries and everything else, I think we need a little bit of current education and future education for our firefighters. They need to understand a couple of basic things, such as the current radios we have, the 7000 XEs, were never Class 1, Division 1 for groups A and B. So it's not every flammable liquid or atmosphere you could go in. So that's a limitation to begin with. They need to know that there's, potentially 10-year-old radios, and we can't guarantee that those have had any maintenance to make sure that they maintain that rating, Class 1 or 2, Division 1 or 2. And then more importantly, that the 8000s are non-incentive radios. We're never Class 1, Division 1 radios. and the fact that, now alternate batteries are put in. So just kind of a word of caution that you need to, not be over reliant on the fact that your radio is somehow intrinsically safe. I think the education should be that you should assume that they're not and act accordingly. And I think John alluded to it, but firefighters also carrying a number of other non-intrinsically safe devices with them into fires and potentially hazardous atmosphere. So I think there's an educational process there, probably through ACDC, DUCOM, and DuPage chiefs, just to get that message out.
Okay, so we have a battery we can use to extend, well, bottom line is we're gonna extend the project until the radio that we pick can be tested in the lab.
Yes, but I still think has to be further discussion. ACDC chiefs, there's still some chiefs that hasn't seen it. And there was some concern with a couple of the chiefs from the DUCON chiefs.
Okay.
We also testing the batteries, so that's gonna probably take at least a couple of weeks,
All right, that's not bad, couple weeks.
at least.
Okay. All right, any other questions then concerning the batteries or moving forward with a replacement battery for the radios? Okay, we'll move on to 6B, which is the survey update. Steve, can you give us an update on that? You and Bill did an excellent job. All the numbers are back.
Sure. It looks like the survey actually came back relatively quickly. We've got about 1,400 full-time officers out there, 118 CSOs, administrative staff, et cetera. Shows us about 2,057 radios that are out there. That includes about 826 mobile units, which I had not tracked prior to this. So I think the survey is relatively accurate. Looks like we're right about that, 1,500, 16, 1,800 mobile units that are out there, or I'm sorry, portable radios that are out there. But Bill did a good job of putting it all together pretty quickly.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. All right, so that helps us on the police side, right?
Yep.
Okay, we have our numbers down there. Jim, were you handling the fire side?
Yes, working with Linda and the county to put a survey monkey together. Took a while to get it together, but it went out to DuPage chiefs this morning. I don't know if I'm beat the clock, but my response is in. We'll see how the others get theirs in soon.
Nice going.
Hey,
Okay.
Bill, just a real quick comment. I just double checked the spreadsheet. 2,057 portables that are out there. That excludes the 826 mobile radios that are out there, and a majority of those mobiles are with the sheriff.
Okay.
Chief, are those are Starcom mobiles?
Yes, Starcom mobiles. Looks like mine, the ones I have, I purchased on my own, but yes, those are all Starcom mobiles.
827.
826.
6.
Yep.
That's a lot of Starcom mobiles that
A lot of Starcom mobiles that are out there. Yeah.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I was just surprised.
I was too. I was a little taken back by it myself, but it looks like there's quite a few out there.
Could I ask a question of John Lozard? John, does that seem right that there's that many police mobiles out there?
That seems a little high to me.
Okay, hold on. Strike that just for a second. 125. I have to read my own spreadsheet here. 125 radios in squads. There's 826 vehicles. So
That
yeah.
that seems more reasonable. Thanks, Chief.
I was up all night with some storm that ran through my neighborhood. So yeah, 125.
Thanks for double checking that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we covered everything that we wanted to cover for this particular meeting. So, Jim, do you think your survey will be back in 2 weeks?
Hard to predict the chief's responses. I would hope so. It's a simple survey. You can do it in about 5 minutes, but I think Chief Dinah and Joel and Chief Kramer can help push that through the various groups, particularly ACDC and DUCOM. That would be quite helpful. Easy to do. We can get the results as soon as they're submitted. So I would hope so, Chief.
All right, appreciate it, Jim. And
Do we, quick question, do we need to get counts from PSAPs?
Good idea.
You guys probably have portables.
We have a few portables. I know Brandon's got some, I have some.
I can get a count.
do you have specific portables assigned to the PSAPs?
Yeah, we'll use them if we have trouble with positions and stuff. They're on our bridge, so, and then some managers have them to monitor their shift and stuff.
All right. All right, we'll put together those numbers. And just moving ahead now. Okay, we're gonna have a little time to determine which portable we're gonna recommend and have tested. And are we finished with encryption? Matt?
Yes, I am working on writing up a section for that. I did not have it ready for this meeting. Hopefully the next meeting you'll see my first draft.
All right. And then what do we need to do to finalize all the features?
So to me, it's, and you know, John spent a lot of time looking at features and stuff, but I think once we decide this is the model we're going into, we kind of have to go through the feature set, because the Apex Next is different than the 8000 of what you have to pick from. There are some features that both have, you know, then if we decide, wait, it's neither of those radios, it's some third radio, like I can't tell you what that feature set is. Some of them are simple, like TDMA, Motorola or Starcom requires it for new radios to be TMA, so I think we have to have it. A couple of the features that we've always kind of wished we had over there, programming, is probably something we could talk about. Is it something that's a requirement? Is it a nice to have? How far do we want to take it? Because even if you do that, you could also do over the network programming. So does the radio have wireless in it? How does it integrate with Radio Manager? There's a bunch of features that we could investigate further to discuss. But I think from all the touches we've done over there, programming is one of those things of, it really is a nice to have. It would make the process simpler and quicker. But it's not a requirement, because we've obviously done it without, we've maintained the radios without it. So I guess I'd look to you guys to tell me if it's something we need to consider, or how do we want to change that?
Okay. The portables we looking at, do they offer all these features? The Wi-Fi, the TDMA, the GPS, OTAR, AES, multi-key application, and LTE?
LTE is only on the Next. That's not on the 8000, I believe. But the rest of them are pretty similar.
Did you say something, John?
No, I was just saying that was correct. LT is only available on the Next.
Okay. All right.
And Bill, are we going to entertain a 4000 radio, the Apex 4000? Is that something that we want to put in the mix? Or I understand a lot more about, after talking to John Lozar and some of the conversations, I understand a little bit more about the radio, how the radios are going to work. Although in the next 10 years, I would assume that the 7000s will appear in the graveyard like most of the Motorola products? Are we going to offer another radio and put it up front to talk about, or are we going to wait, kick it down the road, and have somebody else worry about it when we run out of 7000s?
No, I thought we were gonna, put it on the table.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lower cost portable that's Starcom approved, right?
I believe that's correct. And I'm looking at John Lozar and Matt, but I believe that's correct.
Yeah, that is correct.
I think, didn't we send something out on the update between the two versions of that radio, and Motorola's working on getting you some for samples?
Okay, great.
And I provided the samples of the APX Next radios at the DUCOM Fire Operations Subcommittee meeting. I've since sent those over to Lyle Woodridge because they didn't have a chance to look at those radios because they had to leave for a fire. And if any other agencies want to get a closer look, I'm going to pick them up from Lyle today. And then they're scheduled to go to ACDC sometime in July.
All right,
So far, all the comments have been favorable on the APX Next.
beautiful.
Chief Dinah, I was gonna pick those radios up from you tomorrow for ACDC.
That'll be fine. I'll have them tomorrow.
Great, thanks.
Okay, we're moving ahead. All right. So moving then on to item number 7 is old business. I don't have any. Item 8, new business. And I don't have any other business for today. And then 9 is the next meeting, which is July 12th. We're starting to get into vacation season. Does it look like you'll be available on July 12th at 9 a.m.? Maybe.
So far.
I will be out.
Okay. Matt's out, so we still have a quorum. Okay, we'll keep July 12th, 9 a.m.
Bill, one comment before you call for an adjournment, if I might.
Yes, please.
I was able to monitor the traffic last night from DUCOM, from all the responding units. I thought that number one, DUCOM did a great job. I also thought that the radio system held up very, very well, especially with the number of push to talks. I'd almost be anxious to see what the peak was on that. But there was a tremendous amount of traffic, and it seems that the system handled it extremely well, especially with the adverse conditions. So kudos to not only to DUCOM, but kudos to the ETS board and all the engineers that keep this thing running.
Nice. Thank you, Steve.
I'll echo those comments as well on the fire side. Did a great job. The new emergency operations procedure that DUCOM put into play were fantastic.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And actually Motorola did check with us to make sure everything was going okay.
Yeah, it was.
Sent reports out, so they were responsive too.
Nice.
I'd be anxious to see if there were any bonks, but it really, from what I heard, it didn't sound like it. It sounded like everybody was getting through.
So there's only in the last
report.
in the last 24 hours on Starcom, there was only 15 busies.
Wow.
So in 24 hours, 15 busies, and we handled almost 17,000 push to talks in that time frame on the police side, on our police talk group. So it doesn't count your TAC channels or anything like that. And then there was 4,000 fire on our 6 fire talk groups. So between the PSAP's dispatch channels, there's over 20,000 push to talks in the last 24 hours.
Awesome. It's a good system. Works.
It is. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Taryn.
Second, Joel.
Oh, really quickly. Aaron,
Yep.
Bird.
Yep.
Joel,
Yes.
Dinah,
Yes.
Carmen,
Yes.
Peyton.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks. Have a good one.
You.